Longing for that old painkiller high, El Paso elsewhere takes you on a downward spiral of nostalgia as the devil over the shoulder of a recovering addict whose choice of poison couldn't compare to what love did to him. While the action has the emotional pace of a psychotic episode, the story explores a surprisingly personal story, considering its neo-noir influences that border on parody. If you missed the original Bullet Time as much as me, you would do well to keep this one on your mind and play it in the near future. El Paso elsewhere is an interesting case on how to turn around an existent concept into something better. With several other experimental games already under their belt, the developer's strange scaffold fell into making El Paso Nightmare, a first-person shooter that swerves into the horrors of liminal spaces until it evolves into another boomer shooter. Being released just last year, it's not like it brought much to stand out from a genre that is only becoming more saturated by the day. In an interesting turn of events, Strange Scaffold used Nightmare's groundwork to build Elsewhere by shifting the camera into third person and tackling the story from the point of view of someone who understands why everything is happening and is currently trying to stop it. If their inspirations weren't clear enough, it only takes one dive fueled by gunpowder and painkillers to be taken back to 2001 when Remedy Games released the critically acclaimed Max Payne. While the self-indulgent, hard-boiled detective angle is also present, it forges its own identity by having a lighter sense of levity to the whole situation. You would expect this sort of stories to lean hard on cynicism at all times, even during their bursts of humor, but both the protagonist and the game here are afraid to fully commit to the bizarre scenario, and they're prone to comment over how weird everything is. Taking it from the start, you take on the role of James Savage, a man that is a reflection of what most of us are, trying to recover from the past while simultaneously dealing with the present. His current problem is an ex-lover who turned out to be the next iteration of Dracula and is about to evoke something much worse than an European-style castle. What is a man, anyway? Well, something miserable from the looks of it. Using this ridiculous situation as an excuse to fall back on bad habits, James uses the expertise on dealing with folklore and the occult to take upon himself the task of stopping this world-ending calamity, which he feels partially responsible for. This takes him to a certain undisclosed motel at the town of El Paso, where Dracula is to commit the designated ritual. Everything starts well until reality unravels as soon as you enter the damn elevator, always taking you to where you need to go, but never where you want to be. As soon as you step out onto the first floor, the void grabs you for a ride of a lifetime, morphing the motel into a human-sized rat maze, built upon a cacophony of cheap trills, tight corridors, and packed rooms. Like if IKEA filled their warehouses with already built furniture. Luckily, they break just as easily, so you can throw yourself into them when bullets aren't enough, sending broken pieces flying all over, but also providing boot stakes for powerful melee attacks. Kind of important when the opposite force is comprised of monsters, mostly of the vampire type. Dracula is using hostages to kickstart the ritual, so for each floor the elevator takes you, you must find a way to rescue each one of them. But with all the monsters lurking around, it's inevitable that a stray bullet might hit the wrong target, so be careful. Or not. This being Texas, the guns are plenty to go around, so as you go down, you acquire all the right tools to deal with all types of minions that the Void throws at you. It's a nice selection, with even a Tommy gun thrown into the mix, which is a personal favorite of mine. But the shotgun is what really shines here, when the cartridge is a one-way ticket to the fuck out of here. Such a powerful shot that sometimes enemies just clip out of existence. As a man with his soul ripped out of his body by an entire pharmacy worth of pills, you can slow down time at will, as long as you got enough focus, which is refilled with each monster you kill. This can then be used at any time, or automatically as you die with guns blazing to deal maximum pain upon your enemies. Something the game fails to mention is how you can also use this to jump off walls. Just because you're falling down a self-destructive spiral of violence doesn't mean you can't look stylish doing it. With every hostage accounted for, the Void finally takes notice of your miserable existence, and you must run back to the elevator as the lights go dim and your path is only illuminated by the signs who decide to help you in return. As the music gets muffled the closer you get, while every monster is out to get you. Without even a pause to catch your breath, you're in a new floor with more hostages, more monsters, more bullets, more pain and more killers. It starts simple enough, with vampires wrapped as mummies and later werewolves, as it's the usual economy package, but it's just a matter of time until you're fighting damned brides, puppeteers and the biblically accurate angels shooting biblically accurate artillery. If there is a trope that I absolutely love, is when monsters think they are any sort of threat to humanity, only to be presented to our latest evolution trait, a fucking gun. I don't care whatever unseen horrors you came from, you're going right back, after I introduce you to the concept of a 12 gauge. Besides the extra ammunition, you get a sort of hidden collectible in the form of projectors, which delve into the past shared with Dracula, and radios that play short shows that are used as a quick break in the game's tension, both in its humoristic tone and as an explanation into one of the possible sources for the protagonist's narration style.
For probes 11 through 14, what's going through your head?
I'll be honest, sir. At that point, I'm thinking my ass must be delicious.
Right.
I'm thinking my ass is a treasure trove of scientific data and research, because otherwise, there ain't no reason for him to keep coming back.
You'd assume so.
As you know, I tried making my ass dirty. Tried making my ass clean.
Right.
It didn't make a difference. They went right back in there.
Fascinating.
Another callback to its inspirations that is certainly appreciated, but with a tone that might not be for everyone. Outside of that, James also throws the occasional snarky remark, but if it wasn't for the subtitles, they would certainly drown under all the gunshots, music, and enemy grunts that resonate throughout each floor. Another absolute bizarre feature is how select levels are accompanied by original hip-hop tracks. For the lack of knowledge on the topic, I can only describe the genre as something closer to SoundCloud rap. This will ironically be the biggest turn-off for people that got this far in, with the expectations of this being just a return to form with the classic noir roots. Personally, I love the juxtaposition between the two, and this sort of music just helps bring a raw sense of emotion that is crucial for this type of personal story. Still, there are only a handful of those tracks, and the majority of the levels are accompanied by the expected electronic score that fits the more tense moments. Overall, the entire game is great, with the only real problem being the usual downfall for this sort of creative work when turned commercial product, which is to say that El Paso elsewhere is too long. In trying to justify its initial price of release, the game is at least twice as long as it should be. There are periods where the basic gameplay concept is not enough to carry itself. One can make the case that the runtime is necessary to properly flesh out the characters at an appropriate pace, while maintaining a correct ratio of action and story, but as a counter-objection, the style that carries the game begins to lose its appeal when certain pieces start to noticeably repeat to new chapters. The levels, for example, when filtered down to their distinct attributes, are not much more than aesthetics, as their layout designs can be reduced to flat, claustrophobic mazes. The problem here is not the design being confusing to navigate, as they are well put together to guide the player to where they need to go. Additionally, in a stroke of genius game design and narrative purpose, the way the ceiling is removed by default not only is a great way to emphasize the scale of the ever-shifting void from the perspective of the player, but it also serves to give plenty of headspace for the camera to move freely, and being able to quickly look around to find any hostages you might have missed. The actual problem is that when it comes down to it, you're left with around 7 or 8 level aesthetics, so the real differences come from the use of some classic challenge tropes, like being completely in the dark, losing all of your weapons, and avoiding touching the floor. But that is not enough to make the levels unique from each other, to the point where I find it hard to recall specific levels. It has some cool set pieces and some neat artistic composition, but at the end of the day, you're just looking for keys to open doors and then go back to where you started, besides some exceptions to the rule. Some of the weapons could also have a heavier feel to them. I'm not expecting classic Resident Evil 4 levels of reload animations, but some weapons like the sniper rifle feels like I'm shooting a water gun. The cocktail molotovs should also be a separate button like a grenade. As it stands, I used it like once when I got it first time, and then I just forgot about it. In case it wasn't clear, there are 2 possible endings, but the way the requirements are set up forces you to play the entire game from the beginning. And even while taking advantage of the available option for infinite bullets, I found it hard to go through some of the more drawn-out chapters on a repeated playthrough. In the end, I still find it worth it of a complete playthrough, as it isn't that long when comparing to most of the games nowadays. And while there isn't a difficulty option, the game isn't that hard. Just remember that rolling has iframes and nothing should trouble you. Stacking up the final numbers, it is a great game, so congratulations to the developers, and here's hoping for a good future to them.